The courtroom air felt suffocating, thick with tension. It was as though the walls themselves were closing in on Sam Thompson. The entire room watched him, their eyes fixed on the young man standing alone before the judge's bench. This was no ordinary trial. No ordinary defendant. The weight of the moment hung heavy, and Sam felt every ounce of it pressing down on his chest. At just 19 years old, Sam had already been through more than most people could ever imagine. Growing up in East Oakland, a city that had long been a battleground between its residents and law enforcement, he had seen things no young person should ever witness. He had heard stories from his older brothers about the police brutality, the systemic racism that ran so deep in their community. But none of that had prepared him for the nightmare of being accused of something he didn't do. It wasn't just the charges against him that felt wrong, it was the whole system. The same system that had failed so many others before him. As Sam stood there, eyes steady, jaw clenched, his thoughts were as sharp as a blade. This wasn't just about me. This was about proving that we don't have to accept the system as it is. We can fight back. The prosecutor, Rebecca Price, stood up with an air of authority. She was well-dressed, her tone sharp as she began her opening statement. She was painting a picture of a violent, uncontrollable young man, Sam, who had allegedly attacked a police officer during a routine traffic stop. The defendant, Sam Thompson, not only resisted arrest but used excessive force against an officer, she said, her words dripping with certainty. She described how Sam had fled from the scene, trying to escape the consequences of his actions. The jury nodded, looking at Sam with skepticism. Her story sounded convincing. It sounded like it made sense. It sounded like it was true. But Sam wasn't just another defendant in a courtroom. He wasn't going to let them control the narrative. He wasn't going to let them convict him based on assumptions. When it came time for the defense, Sam's appointed public defender, a man named Thomas Carter, stood up nervously. He was an older man with a receding hairline and thick glasses that constantly slipped down his nose. He didn't seem prepared for the magnitude of what was at stake. He barely spoke more than a few sentences before sitting down again, his voice trembling, clearly deferring to the prosecutor's confidence. The judge, Ronald Sheffield, turned to Sam. "Mr. Thompson, are you ready to proceed?" His voice was more cold than concerned, and Sam could feel the judge's lack of belief in him. Sam didn't hesitate. "Your Honor, I'll be representing myself." There was a collective gasp in the room. Even the prosecutor raised an eyebrow, her lips curling into a thin smile. It was a move that most defendants would never dare to make. But Sam wasn't most defendants. He was a young man who had spent his life studying the law, who had watched his mother work tirelessly as a paralegal, who had spent hours in the library, researching every case, every statute. He wasn't afraid. Judge Sheffield blinked, then leaned back in his chair. "Mr. Thompson, you're sure about this? This is not a game." Sam nodded, calm and collected. "Yes, Your Honor. I know what happened, and I know how to defend myself." The judge's gaze flickered with uncertainty for a brief moment, but then he motioned for Sam to proceed. The tension in the room was palpable. The gallery of spectators waited, their eyes glued to Sam, curious to see how he would handle the weight of such a moment. And Sam wasn't about to disappoint them. With a deep breath, Sam stood up slowly, his voice cutting through the silence. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I stand before you today accused of something I didn't do. They say I resisted arrest. They say I attacked a police officer. But none of this is true." The room was dead silent as Sam's words sank in. He paced slowly in front of the jury box, making sure to make eye contact with every person in that room. His words were calm, controlled, but they held the weight of truth. "First, let's talk about what happened that night. The prosecution wants you to believe that I was angry, that I lashed out. But what they don't want you to know is the full story. They don't want you to know that I was a passenger in that car, not the driver. They don't want you to know that the police had no reason to stop us." He paused, his eyes flickering toward the judge. "Your Honor, I request that we review the body camera footage of the incident. Let's see what really happened." The prosecutor shot up, her face flushed with anger. "Your Honor, this is unnecessary. We have the testimony of the officers involved. The footage is irrelevant." But Sam wasn't backing down. "If I'm guilty, the footage will show it. If I'm innocent, we need to see it. This is my life we're talking about." The judge hesitated, clearly caught off guard by the boldness of Sam's request. After a long pause, he finally agreed. "We'll review the body camera footage." The footage arrived the next day, and as the jury watched, the room grew tense. The video revealed the truth in a way no one expected. Sam hadn't been fighting. He hadn't been resisting arrest. He hadn't even been in the car when the officers arrived. The officers had lied about the entire situation, fabricating evidence to cover their tracks. Sam's heart pounded in his chest as the truth unfolded before everyone in that courtroom. But it didn't end there. Sam wasn't just going to let the system slide by with one victory. He knew how deep the corruption ran. As the trial continued, he requested something even more important: the officers' previous record. What were their histories? Had they been involved in any previous incidents of misconduct? Sam wasn't going to let anyone skate by. The prosecutor objected, but the judge reluctantly allowed it. Sam's lawyer, who had now become more supportive of his efforts, pushed for the officers' full records. It wasn't just about proving Sam's innocence, it was about exposing the truth, the whole truth. As more evidence was revealed, it became clear that this was not just about Sam. This was about the entire system. A system that punished young black men for their very existence. A system that profited from the criminalization of people who looked like Sam. And when the verdict came in, it was nothing short of extraordinary. The jury deliberated, and within hours, they returned with their decision. Not guilty on all counts. The courtroom was silent. Then, chaos erupted. Some in the gallery were stunned, while others celebrated. Reporters rushed forward, microphones in hand. Sam stood up, but he didn't smile. His expression was calm, measured. This wasn't about victory for him. It was about justice for everyone who had ever been falsely accused, for everyone who had ever been treated like a criminal simply because of who they were. As he left the courtroom, he was greeted by his mother, LaShonda, who had been waiting outside. She pulled him into a tight embrace. "You scared me half to death," she whispered. Sam chuckled, scratching the back of his head. "Had to take a risk, Ma." But as they walked down the courthouse steps, something unexpected happened. Judge Sheffield, standing across the street by his car, watched them. His face was unreadable, but there was a change in his eyes. Sam caught his gaze for a brief moment before looking away. Later that night, as Sam sat alone in his room, he reflected on everything that had happened. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for everyone who had ever been caught in the system. He knew he wouldn't be the last to face this kind of injustice. But next time, it wouldn't be him on the other side of the courtroom. The next time, Sam would be the one standing for justice. And so, the story of Sam Thompson becomes more than just a courtroom drama. It becomes a symbol of resilience, of standing up when everything is stacked against you, of fighting for what's right even when the world tries to break you. But this story isn't over. It's just beginning. If you found this story inspiring, if it made you think about the way we treat each other in the eyes of the law, take a moment and think about how we can all be part of the change. Hit that subscribe button for more powerful stories that matter. Like this video, share it with others who need to hear it, and leave a comment telling us what you think. Let's keep this conversation going. Because the fight for justice doesn't end here. It starts with you. And it starts now. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories, more truth, and more change. Because together, we can make the system work for all of us.